Hi, we're sisters, Amy and Nancy Harrington, founders of the Passionistas Project, an inclusive sisterhood where women find support, purpose, and empowerment. Each episode, we share stories of passion-driven women breaking barriers and redefining success. Today, we're talking with Wendy Sterling, an intuitive business coach and healer who helps high-achieving women break free from fear, rewrite their money stories, and create soul-aligned success. So we are thrilled to have you here. We're so excited to talk to you today, Wendy. And we want to know first out of the bat, what are you most passionate about?
Oh, well, it's wonderful to see you both again. And I'm so honored to be here with you both and to share my wisdom. So, what am I passionate about? That is a great question. And honestly, it's hard to narrow it down. So, I'm going to do my best. But really, what truly I am the most passionate about is when I get to watch women step into all of who they are and to watch them soar when they do so. Because what I have experienced myself and with the, thousands of women that I've had the privilege of being able to work with is when that happens, it is almost like this beautiful music starts playing and you just see just the beauty and what it is that you're able to create in this moment. And honestly, that is what fuels me and keeps me wanting to do this work and why I get up every single day.
Well, that's beautiful. And this is what makes us kindred spirits, I think.
Yes.
So how do you do that? How do you help women?
Oh, how much time do we have? No, I'm just kidding.
Take all
Um,
the
so,
time you want.
so I will tell you, I am psychic, I am highly intuitive, and so one of the gifts that I bring when I work with clients is I have this ability when I start engaging in a conversation with someone, I literally can see this roadmap and this blueprint that tells me where it is that they are and where it is that they want to get to. And in that vision that I see, the words that I'm hearing, what I'm able to really help my clients to do is it's almost like I coach them into seeing the vision for themselves and then helping them to see how it is that they can break down from where they are to where they want to be, breaking it down into these baby steps of where it is that, or how it is that they're going to get there faster. So I love playing with time and speed because as humans, I mean, we've created this whole thing called a clock and a calendar, and the universe functions on a very different timeline, and uses time very differently. And so the way in which I support my clients is teaching them to understand that the time that the universe supports us in creating what it is that we want is going to look different than the human clock and time that we're, kind of pushing and staying in like that doing energy of like pushing forward and trying to get something accomplished. And so part of that process is also teaching my clients the surrender and what I call the power in the pause, which is also, as you guys know, because you were guests on my show, it's called, my podcast is called The Power in the Pause. And it's really teaching my clients to understand that when you stop and you breathe and you gift yourself with that pause, what ends up happening in that time is the acceleration happens because you're getting back in touch, you're pausing, you're recalibrating your energy to align with what is in your highest and best. And so many of us believe in that or have bought into that hustle culture. And it doesn't, it actually slows you down. Like that's the sort of the illusion of what it is that we do as entrepreneurs is we think that if we check stuff off of our list and we're getting stuff done and look like I used to use my to-do list as the check marks were like an award I was giving myself. But at the end of the day, what it was actually doing, it was just keeping me on a hamster wheel. And when I stopped striving to check things off my list and instead I embraced being present and slowing down, all of a sudden, all of these amazing opportunities were coming my way. And so it takes practice, right? It's like going to the gym, building a new muscle that you have to work on, but you would never go to the gym and start weight training without a trainer, right? So that's sort of how I try to support my clients in learning how to slow down so that they too can embrace the acceleration that happens in the pause.
So let's take a step back. Tell us a little bit about when you knew you had these gifts. What was your childhood like, and were you into this kind of stuff as a kid?
Yeah, so great question. Thank you for asking. So it's interesting because now looking back, I now can see it all having played out, and it didn't really hit me until I went through my divorce about 8.5 years ago that I had all of these abilities. So when I was a little girl, I was highly intuitive. And I know that because what I was told were imaginary friends were actually my angel guides. And I'll share a brief story around how it is that, like, there was one pivotal moment when I was working with one of my energy healing mentors where she confirmed to me that, yes, I am indeed connected to the other side, that I am highly psychic, and that I have had encounters with my angel guides. So she and I had a session together, and she literally spoke to me the exact memory that I had as a little girl that nobody other than my mother, who is now deceased, she is the only other person that knew about this story. And it was when I went to an all-girls private school in San Francisco. And when I was about 7 years old, I remember during recess that I had sat on the bench and there happened to be a man sitting on the bench. Again, I went to an all-girls school. So when I came home to tell my mother the story, she she was like beside herself, right? Like, who is this man and why is he talking to my little girl? Right? And yes, we had male teachers at our school, but when I described him, it wasn't any of the male, like it wasn't the principal, it wasn't any of the male teachers at the school. And so my mother looked at me and she said, Wendy, it's let's just not share this. Like, this is an imaginary friend. It's great that you have an imagination, but like this didn't happen. And I remember thinking to myself, but it did. Like, I was so confused why my mom didn't believe me. Now, when I was with my energy healer and my mentor, and she was training me, she literally said to me the exact experience that I had on this bench at my school, at my elementary school. And she went a step further, and I never told anyone his name because he told me his name. And she told me I'm getting like full body chills, by the way. And she told me his name. And I started crying. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I have never told anyone this story. I have never told anyone this man's name." And I was like, "Thank you. Thank you for just reflecting back to me that this was not me being crazy." Now, understand that I also grew up, I am the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors on two sides of my family. So my whole family just wanted to fit in. We didn't want to be known as immigrants. We didn't want people to know, that we weren't from this country. And so my mom, there was that fear that was passed down, right? So my mom, looking back, I mean, my mother and I she was my best friend and we were so close. And I can understand how at that time it was, I mean, someone would have sent me off to the loony bin if I, if this had gotten out, right? Especially if my grandmother found out, like, oh my God, all hell would have broken loose, right? So it was something that I knew was real. And I had started to kind of tap into this. And I'm gonna, that's kind of fast forwarding to, let's say present day. Maybe this was about 5 years ago that I had this experience with my energy healing mentor. But it was really when I found out and, listened to the punch that I got in my gut the night that I discovered that my ex-husband was having an affair. And it was that night where it was like the voices started coming back. And it was that night where I really started to understand that there was this part of me that I had shut down for, nearly 3 decades of my life. And so slowly but surely it started coming back to me. And it really enables me to be able, I think there was for probably like the first 5 years of my entrepreneurial career, I was terrified of telling anybody I was psychic or that I had this like intuition publicly. My clients knew, the women that worked with me knew my gifts, but I was afraid to really kind of like really come out and be really vocal about this. But the more I started working with my clients and the more I started tapping into that piece of me, I would see visions of clients from their childhood that, again, nothing was ever shared with me, but I could see these images, I could see these experiences, and they would look at me and go, how did you know? Like I had one client who she tried out for the role of Annie, like the movie Annie that we all have seen with Carol Burnett, right? And she had tried out for that. I had no idea. But like when she and I were doing some work together, all of a sudden I saw her at this age standing on a stage singing The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow, right? Tomorrow is the song, Tomorrow. And I saw her singing the song. And she just was like, how the hell did you know? She's like, literally, very few people know that I tried out for this role. So over time, like I've started to get more comfortable with that part of myself. And so it's a big piece of how it is that I'm able to work with and support my clients. It's not something that it's like I'm talking to you guys and I'm getting downloads right now. Like that's not what happens. That's not my experience, but it's really when I'm engaging in that space with my clients, the same way that my spirit guides, I was available for them to come to me. And when I make myself available, that's when it comes through. And it's the same thing when I work with my clients.
Chills to toe. About 15
Right? Full
times
body,
saying all that. Yeah,
right?
head to toe, like cold chills. Yeah, I mean, we believe in it 100% and have experienced stuff, not to that level, but totally get it. And think it's beautiful that you have tapped into it to help other people. And really respect that. So how does your work um use that and your other skills? Like when someone comes to you, what is the process like?
Yeah. So, the way that I work with clients now, I mean, my process with my private clients obviously is very different from the women that I have in my mastermind, which is my group program. And so when I'm working with somebody privately, obviously there's a lot more, intimate conversations and time that we get to have and time that we get to spend. And there really is, it's almost like, my private clients are sort of they're giving me that constant permission to tap into their energy field because we are in that, year-long committed relationship with one another, right? And so when I'm working with a client, like, with some programs, it's like you have these, sometimes courses have videos and modules and workbooks and like, that's great, guys. Like, so glad that works for some people. But for me and the work that I do, I tap into the energy of my clients like an hour before I'm meeting up with them because it's important for me that I'm tapping in to what I'm feeling is the energy that is happening with them specifically. Now, the same happens when I work with the women who are in my Unapologetic Woman Mastermind. So I have an amazing group of incredibly talented women who we meet on a weekly basis. And even though we meet on Zoom once a week, we're also in a community container together where everyone is engaged and sharing, and we've got, conversations happening, and they have homework that they're working on throughout the week, or I put in a challenge. And so the work that I do with them, it's an always on. So when they're coming in, I'm tapping into their energy, right? And so it's this free flow of things that are coming in. I mean, there's, two women in that group who have come in today where I've gotten some downloads of like, this is what I'm hearing is being said. And it's really opened my clients up to be able to share like, oh, okay, this is what I don't love the word trigger, but like, this is what's coming up for me and hearing what you're saying spirit is telling you. And so the integration of the work that I do with my clients either happens it happens in that collective, or it sometimes happens one-on-one. I also I use different Oracle and tarot card decks that I'll pull out. So, we had one call with our mastermind group where I heard and felt that everyone needed a spirit animal. So I pulled my spirit animal deck out and I pulled cards for everybody. And I go beyond the reading of like what the book says the card means, where I'm tapping into their energy in real time to sort of help translate what it is that the card is saying specifically to them. But interestingly, I will ask them first, right? Because I want to find out from them like what it is that they're hearing, because I'm trying to teach them how to tap in for themselves. Right. And so then I'll come on top of them to be able to like help them fine tune the message so that they can better connect the dots. Because at the end of the day, you guys, like, I'm not here to work with clients for 10 years. I'm not here to work with clients to keep, it's like, it's kind of like I would love to keep them on the payroll, but then to me, that's not doing my job, right? So like, yes, I have clients that have moved from group programs into private coaching because there's like a mastermind to a mentorship that happens and there's that relationship. But I'm really not doing my job if I'm not teaching them how to tap in for themselves. Now, I've paid mentors as well. I have two coaches. I work with coaches because I want to invest in myself and I want to keep investing in honing in my skill set. So even though I'm teaching them what to do and how to learn to do this for themselves, what I'm also doing is showing them how it is that they can do this for them. And then ultimately, my goal is I hope that they're using it for their clients, just like how my mentors know that I use what they're teaching me in the work that I do to my clients. So it's kind of like this pay it forward is kind of how I see it. And so it just honestly, it depends. I just tap into the energy. I've done group energy work before where, I've tapped into what's going on. I do downloads, with them or kind of talk into the energy that I'm feeling is happening in the room. I guide them in visualizations. It's all guided by what the energy is telling me is needed in that moment. So I'm kind of that conduit.
That's fantastic. It's so cool. I'm
I love
fascinated
it.
by it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's cool.
I mean, we've had people tell us things that there's no way they would know it, so
So cool.
it's so cool. And did you personally, like, when you as an adult, when this came back into your world, you were finally kind of were acknowledging it, did you had that one woman that told you about the guy's name, but did you start to work with people to hone your skills more, or was it just kind of an intuitive, natural thing that were able to
Yeah.
do it?
No, I mean, I did. I studied with my energy healing mentor for probably about 2 years, and I've evolved into more spiritual mentors that guide me and support me in tapping into that space with me. That's one of my two coaches. I mean, a lot of her role for me is to help me hone back in on sort of, that psychic and intuitive ability that I have. Because here's the thing, right? We're so good at this for other people, but when it comes to ourselves, we're like, that's where we need the accountability, right? And so as I'm doing like, and I say this to my clients too, like you really only need to be like 1 to 2 steps ahead of your ideal clients in order for you to really support and help them to guide them on their journey. And so, I mean, my mentor that I choose to work with, I mean, it is a hefty investment and it is worth every penny because she's supporting me in tapping in, but also confirming the messages that are coming in for me, right? So it's sort of like this, like we're kind of, in this dance together, I guess you could kind of call it, is kind of how I'm seeing it, is that's kind of how I feel, but she's leading, right? Like she's leading the dance and I'm in it with her. And that's very much kind of how I feel like my role is with my clients. And I do believe, I believe that it is a muscle that we all have the ability to use and to tap into. And it is a muscle that does require practice, right? Because it requires practice because there's, not to go too off the radar, but like there's almost like, you hear so many times that, you hit that next glass ceiling, right? And then it's like, you got to break through that and you got to break through that. And so it's not just fine tuning the skills you have. It's also learning how, okay, now what? Okay, what's next now? What's the next thing, right? And it's also not up to you around how it is that you're going to be that receiver of that information. So part of the practice is paying attention and being in that place of consciousness where you're listening and you're learning to distinguish and decipher between what is spirit and what is fear. And I've honed in on. I mean, one of the big things that I teach is understanding the difference between fear and intuition. And the way that I do that is by teaching my clients about the sensation in their body, because it's very different. When you're in fear, it's activating you in a very specific way, versus when it's your intuition, it feels completely different. So a lot of the work that my mentor has taught me, and it's different than what happens for her, but she knows that for me it's different. It's like a sensation. I feel things in my body. And so I know when messages are coming in, to know the difference between like what is in my or my client's highest and best versus what is the voice of fear or my ego, or sometimes it could be dark energy that's messing with me. And so that practice in and of itself is what I work on. I mean, I work on it every day. I tap in every day. I'm not a girl who like can sit and meditate for 30 minutes. That is not my jam. I am like 5 to 8 minutes. I do my tapping in, I do my listening and asking, for me, it's God and my spirit guides to, guide me in my highest and best each and every day. What is it that I need to know? How do I guide? What is next for me? Kind of a thing. 5 to 8 minutes. That's my practice. That's my practice of practice.
Right.
And that's it.
Wow. Fantastic. When you started your career, you started on a very different path, right?
Yes.
Did you study political science
I did. You did your digging, Amy. I'm impressed.
We like to do our research here.
You did.
So what instigated that original interest, and what brought you off of that path?
You really looked me up on LinkedIn. I'm impressed. So no one has ever asked me this question in like the 10 years I've been like an entrepreneur. No one has. So thank you for asking me this question. So yeah, I was a political science major, graduated from UCLA. It's funny because I wanted to go into marketing. Like I've always been really business savvy, and I get that from my grandmother, because she built a really beautiful family business for our family when they immigrated here. And the problem was UCLA doesn't have like a marketing major, and they still don't, like 30 years later, which drives me crazy. But nonetheless, they didn't have a major that was really where I wanted to go, which was like business and marketing. It had to be like accounting, and that is not my jam, even though I tried it. So, but what's funny is I went into UCLA as a psychology major because I just thought that would be like easy. Never did I realize that like now I wish I actually graduated with a psychology degree, because I like love, all that stuff now. But nonetheless, I chose political science because I was fascinated by the law. I was fascinated by our Constitution and our founding fathers. I loved reading case law and understanding interpretations of the law. And I never wanted to be an attorney. I never wanted to go to law school. That was my ex-husband. That was his path, and more power to him. But I really loved writing. And so I was like, well, this could be my major, and then we'll see what's wrong with a political science degree from UCLA. And it just so happened that like the semester, or the quarter, because it's UCLA's on quarter system, the quarter before I graduated college, a friend of mine had started working at a media agency, and she was looking for an intern. And I was like, okay, you want to pay me and I'll come in. This was back when you could get paid internships in college versus credit. But that dates me a little bit, and I'm okay with that. I did get paid as an intern.
We're with
and
you.
I started and I started to really fall in love with the world of media. Now, media being like radio ads and TV ads and print, remember magazines, right? A print ad and outdoor billboards and, putting together these media plans for these companies. And it happened to be a media agency that Disney was our client. And specifically for the team that I worked with, I worked on the team that handled Disneyland and Disney Channel and Radio Disney, which I don't know if is still a thing anymore, but I fell in love with this whole world because it was marketing to me, right? But it was the media side of marketing. And so when I graduated, they offered me a job and I fell into that. And so for 2 decades, I worked in, media, and ultimately I transitioned about 6 years into my career. You want to talk about intuition. I got an intuitive hit that I wanted to try out sales and to see kind of how sales would go, and got my first job, ironically, working at Radio Disney. And I, fell in love with, working with clients. And, I've always been a great communicator and I love meeting people and hand me a microphone. Can you not tell? Like, right. I love speaking to a crowd and speaking to an audience. And I love listening and supporting and helping and figuring out, like, how can we help each other? And I just have this really natural fit for sales. And so I decided to leave media and go full force into ad sales. And I moved really quickly because that was when the internet, that whole banner ad thing came out. And so I was a dinosaur. I was like one of the first people who started selling, internet advertising. And slowly, as the internet was growing and ad opportunities were being created, I slowly moved into, well, then you can start integrating brands into editorial. Then that whole thing called influencers were a thing where they were creating these videos and this YouTube thing, right? And so I eventually started, building upon my repertoire. And ultimately, what my career lended itself to was entrepreneurship, because what I had carved out for myself in corporate was I was the person they hired to come in and build regions from the ground up, because I had built all these relationships and I knew all these people. And so little did I know that I had built multi-million-dollar regions for these major companies. And I was like, wait a second, like, why am I doing this, for them and not for me? And I was still married at the time. And so ultimately, like, my ex-husband and I, like, couldn't agree on me ever leaving or trying to start my own business. I now understand a lot of why that was never going to be possible with him. But it really took me realizing he was having an affair, me standing in my power and choosing me and saying, I want a divorce. Because, a month later, I quit my job and I decided to start my first, coaching business, which was rooted in divorce. And that's kind of how my evolution from political science at UCLA kind of started me and got me into entrepreneurship.
Wow, that's fascinating. I
Thank
love
you.
you more and more every time we talk to you. I feel like there's so
Aw,
much amazing stuff to learn about you.
thank you.
I
You know
can
what?
beat you in the dinosaur department too, because my job in marketing and advertising was newspaper print ads.
Oh, yeah, newspaper. That was my, do you remember Stuart Anderson's Black Angus? Do you remember that restaurant chain? Yeah, it was big here in SoCal, right? Print was like our primary vehicle. Remember direct mail? Oh
Oh yeah.
yeah, we were in those direct mailers. Yeah, CP, it's like crazy. I'm so glad you guys get me.
And man, you used to actually cut and paste actual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I started my career as a graphic designer with galleys that, I used to design a magazine. So like I'd actually, people don't even understand, like, so you took actual like individual letters and pasted them onto a piece of paper. Yes, yes, I did.
Yeah, we grew up with a father in advertising who our house always smelled like that spray on glue stuff.
Yeah.
Gray Mount.
Yeah. No, I
Toxic.
remember that stuff. Like,
Mhm.
oh my God. Yeah, you guys are bringing me back in a good way, but at least I'm in good company, right?
Definitely.
So funny, so funny. So let's talk about more what you do now. We've read about some of the techniques you use, and I'd love to hear more about them, including sound healing and theta healing, I think it is. So what are those? Explain those to us and how those work.
Yeah, so the energy healing modality that I am certified in as an advanced theta healer, is theta healing. And so theta healing was founded by Viana Stibble, and essentially it is, you go into that theta brainwave state. There's a meditation that guides you into that place. And it's that state, anyone can do this, by the way, but it's that state that you get into right before you fall asleep. And so there's a visualization that I go into when I work with my clients where I get myself into that space. And in that space is where I connect in with, we call it creator. So that is God, whatever entity other people identify with, but for our sake, it is creator of all that is. That is how that's what we call it. So you go into that state to be able to connect with creator. And prior to that, I'm working with a client to do, a lot of curiosity with questions and digging and trying to really get to the root of what are some of the beliefs that you are holding on to that are no longer serving you. And so I work with creator to support my clients in shifting those beliefs, in shifting feelings or downloading different feelings or whatever it is that, we're working on. And I mean, there's a million different ways that I can tap in and work with clients with creator, but essentially I am telling creator what it is that I want creator to do based on what the client has given me their okay and their sign off on what it is that they're agreeing to have the energy shift in them about. And then I command creator to execute, and I witness what it is that I am seeing, feeling, hearing, whatever it is. When I started my first business, a lot of the theta healing work I did was around energetic divorce and disconnecting cords of my clients that they had with their former spouses. And so now that I have shifted more into working, with high achieving business women, and divorce isn't, those ties aren't necessarily something that I work with anymore. It's a lot more around money stories, right? So we have these money stories that have been passed down to us where they have served us because they've gotten us to where it is that we are, right? Like I have a money story from my family that money needs to be hidden. You don't tell people that you have money because they're going to take it. Well, that served my family because it kept them safe, right? So this story served a purpose. Until now, it doesn't serve a purpose anymore for me. So I've done work, on myself, and work I do with my clients. It's around changing what the money story is. It's like you are safe even when you have money, right? So instead of connecting that in order to feel safe, I have to have money, right? So I do the work with my clients to be able to understand and to see that the stories that have supported prior generations no longer serve them. So how do we rewrite them so that you and future generations aren't bearing the energy burden? It's not passed down through your DNA anymore. And how is it that it's going to unlock and open you up to the wealth and the abundance that you desire, for example? So that's how I integrate it into the work that I do with my clients. I'm a sound healer, so I use sound bowls. My two bowls are amazing and one of a kind. The bowls choose you because, for anybody listening, I don't know if anyone has sound bowls or has played them before. But man, when you're looking to buy one, they vibrate up through, like it just vibrated throughout my whole body, these two bowls, and it didn't happen with any of the other ones I played. And so I use them. The bowls specialize in working the sacral chakra and the heart chakra, which tend to be the two that I work with clients the most on. And so I use the bowls to play. I use them more with my private clients than anything else. And I will record sound bowl, like I'll play the sound, like a sound bath basically, and I'll record that. I don't do like big sound baths the way that a lot of people do. That's not my specialty. For me, it's really more of like a one-to-one because I'm feeling into the person's energy to be able to play them in a way that they feel the healing that comes from the music. I'm a really big believer in frequency. And because our bodies are made up predominantly of water, we have the ability to impact our body's frequency and our state of being through sound and through music. And so that's when I'll bring the bowls in for my clients to be able to listen to it, to like, you know, kind of support them where it is that they are or with whatever it is that we're working through together.
Amazing. What other music do you listen to besides that when you're wanting to tap into energy? Is there something you put on?
You know, I'm not really biased. I mean, I'm a Spotify girl, so I'll go into a Spotify playlist that someone's created that is, you know, meditation music. I mean, I listen to whatever that sleep frequency is, like I put that on at night and I do sleep with that music on. But for me, like I don't have like I'll just go to a Spotify playlist and put some meditation music on for myself. And I do that like when I lay down and do like my 5 to 8 minute you know, connecting in with God and spirit every day, like I put I put a timer on and I put my music on and I just, you know, I have a bench here in my, like a window bench in my office, and I just lay there and I listen to whatever comes in, and the music is there too. I mean, I've done like, I know YouTube has like some really good guided meditations as well. You know, I lead my clients in meditation, but I don't listen to them myself. Like I do it with them, like I'm in the meditation with them, but when I choose to lay down myself, I just listen to Spotify music. Good question. I've never been asked that before. You guys are like fantastic hosts. It's good.
Thank you.
We have lots of practice.
So for someone who's just starting out and feeling really overwhelmed with the idea of building a soul-aligned business, what advice would you give to them?
Breathe. You know, truly, I mean, really, I would say breathe only because, and this is what I would tell myself so long ago too. When you're trying, like when you're in that energy of like trying and like, you know, why isn't it coming to me? And like your energy is like, it's not open to receive what's coming through. What I would honestly say to somebody is, you know, really ask yourself, like, what is it that you love about what you've done in the past? Or what is it about, you know, work that you've ever done or interactions with people that like really excites you, right? Like if you had asked me if I would be an entrepreneur, like I would have thought you were crazy, right? I was like, I was a corporate girl. I was moving up the ladder. I wanted my VPs, you know, my SVP title, like whatever. And finally got over that. But when I really look at the end of the day, what I'm really, really good at, I'm really good at it's so funny. One of my former colleagues reflected this back to me when I had just left corporate and I was starting my coaching business. And she's like, Wendy, you've always been good at this. And I was like, you know, yeah, I have. Like, that's why I'm doing this. But I've always been really good at hearing what other people say and being able to reflect back to them what it is that I'm hearing that they can't figure out for themselves or they're just not paying attention to. And so that is something I just got chills again. So like when I really thought about like, I don't know what my business is, like when I left corporate, or when I was thinking about leaving corporate and becoming a coach, I thought I was going to go back and like coach sales executives, like senior management, and like put them in their place. I was like, you cannot rule by fear. People live with anxiety every day because of you. You judge people by numbers. This isn't okay. And I was like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to, right? Like I was on my high horse of like, and the energy was so wrong. And when I stopped trying to force myself to fit into, well, you know, I worked in sales, so I should do something in sales and I should stay in sales. And it was like, no, actually, I need to be a divorce coach because I need to help women who don't know that they get to dream about a future because all they're doing is spending their time in therapy thinking about all the ways that they were messed up as a kid. And so I was like, no, this is really what I need to help people with. And there's a different energy. So really pay attention to your body when you're thinking about what it is that lights you up, that gets you excited, that brings passion, that like, you know, that excites you instead of, energy that's like, well, I should probably do that because I've got so many years of experience. It's going to pay the bill, but like, it's just so low, right? It's just like not the vibration that you want, right? And so just really pay attention to your body around what it is that you're thinking about, and also be open to receive something that is probably like out of left field, but you're like, wait, what's that about? And there's a curiosity behind it because that's the direction that you're supposed to go. That's your intuition talking to you. And so just give yourself that space to breathe, to pause, to listen, and to really just get curious with yourself and your body around what it is that you're thinking about, or what's exciting to you instead of what you're good at. Because what you're good at doesn't translate. I'm really good at selling media. I'm really good at selling beauty brands, influencer marketing packages. Did it light me up? No, I hated it. I was miserable, right? But for me to do what I do now, I mean, it's like I could do it in my sleep because it's like I love talking to people about enrolling them in the vision of, what it is that they want. Like, and it will pay the bills as long as you stay in that energy and you believe in yourself that it's possible for you. The other energy is not, it's not a long-term strategy.
Yeah. It's funny, the last week we've been saying, I receive it, I receive it, I receive it.
It's true.
Thing. Yeah, totally.
And
It's
saying it out loud, even like there's power in using our voice. It's one of the things I work on with my mastermind clients quite a bit is I will say to them a lot, like, say it out loud. Like, you can put yourself on mute on Zoom, but like, speak it out loud. Because when you say it, it is a different frequency, it has a different resonance versus when you're talking in your head. Like, there's no power in that to me. So anytime I get a message, I'll say it out loud. And I'll be like, oh, it's like trying on a new outfit, trying on a new pair of shoes. It's like, oh, that felt really good. Or you're like, that doesn't land. Like that was fear. That was my ego trying to look good in that moment, right? So there's the sound piece is super, super important.
I
Yeah.
also love for the people who cannot see this podcast but are only listening to it, although there is a video version you can go check out. That light just washed across your face while you were talking about that. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, there we go. Things you can't ignore.
Exactly.
So at a time like this where I think a lot of us are just feeling very intense energy, stress from a lot of different places, especially here in LA where we had the fires and everything. Um, do you have any advice for people that are having a hard time kind of breaking through the noise to really focus in on what is important to them personally?
Yeah, I mean, what's coming through is reminding yourself what you have control over. Because I find that we spend a lot of time focusing on the things that we don't have control over. And honestly, like that's one of the things that I talked a lot about during the LA fires because I felt like the media was creating such a panic in us that lived here. And I was getting so tired of like the projection of fear coming through the news. And I'm not saying that it wasn't important for us to be informed. However, newscasters are not fire people. They are not fire experts. They are not firefighters. They don't know anything. And I'm sitting here listening and tapping in. So instead of allowing the external noise to be loud and cause panic in me, I chose to focus in and go, okay, what do I have control over? I don't have control over I kind of have control over Mother Nature because I did tap into my spiritual community and we did a lot of energy work to shift the fires, not towards other neighborhoods, but to shift it to not damage any more homes. I know I have energy power. So I chose to take the power of my fear, and instead of giving it to the fire to like fuel the fire, I chose to use my energy to tame the fire and to get back control of the fire. So what does that mean? For me, it meant doing energy work around the energy of the fire. It also meant doing energy work for me around my home. It also meant, God forbid my house burns down. What do I care that's in this house? My children, my partner Jeff, the dog, some family heirlooms. And I'm like, I had a pile by my door. That is it. Nothing else here in this house at the end of the day mattered. What do I have control over? I have control over my health. I have control over the things that I want to take out of my house. I don't have control over anything else. I already had my plan. I already knew where I was going if we had to evacuate. Like I focused on what I had control over, because to me, then I was good, because I was like, okay, I have my plan, right? So when you put your energy back into what it is that you actually can use it for good for, it is amazing what you can create, how much calmer you become. Because at the end of the day, like, you know, you don't have control over things that you don't have control over. And I find that, you know, I don't buy into the fear anymore. I can't. It is exhausting. It is a waste of my energy, because I know how to best use my own. So if you guys can just take a breath and just really focus around and think about, what is it that I have control over in this moment? And stop worrying about everything else that you don't have control over, right? Whether that is, you know, politics, you know, Mother Nature, your ex-spouse, your mother, your father, your sister, like your brother, your kids, like whatever it is. Because when you realize what you actually do have control over, man, are you a lot calmer. I do that. I like teach my kids this. Right? They're like freaking out. You know, I've got one son in college and he's like freaking out about his grade. I was like, dude, it's going to be what it's going to be. Did you do your best? Did you try your hardest? Yes. Okay, well, let it go. Just you do better on the next one. Like, what do you have control over? How you perform on the next test. Stop focusing on the one that you just took, right? So like, it's just, you know, again, it's a practice. It takes a little bit of time, and man, you're gonna live a lot calmer life if you focus on what you have control over, my friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely love that. So I can't imagine anyone listening to this and not wanting to get in touch with you and work with you. So how does somebody do that?
Oh, you're so sweet, Nancy. Thank you. Well, the best way to find me is, of course, well, there's a bunch of different ways, I suppose, but you guys are welcome to email me if you just want to have a conversation. Like, I'm always open to talking and just helping to reflect back what it is that I'm hearing. I'm really good at that. I always offer those calls, but you're welcome to email me, wendy@wendypagesterling.com. You can also find me on social media at Wendy Page Sterling. Facebook, Instagram, all the grams that I'm on. And then you guys are welcome to also tune into my podcast, which the beautiful Nancy and Amy were a guest on as well. It's called The Power in the Pause. It's a great way to get to know me and to hear more of, you know, what I talk about on my show, but it's on every single podcast platform. I'm also on Spotify, and I have a YouTube channel. And then if you guys are looking for any, you know, freebies or things of that nature, my website's a great place to start. I also have a quiz on there that will tell you what your intuitive superpower is, because we all have one. And you can go to wendypagesterling.com to access that quiz. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Of course. Well, we have a couple more questions
Oh,
before we
okay.
go.
Let's do it.
One question I have is, what do you do when you need to find the power in the pause?
So when I need to find the power in the pause, as long as it's not raining outside, because I'm spoiled, my friends, and I live in Southern California like you both do. So the fastest way for me to find my power in the pause is to ground in my backyard in the grass. Putting my feet in the grass is the fastest way for me. Now, what I have since done is I actually bought a grounding mat, which has been a game changer for me. So that is another way that it just centers me in like the fastest way possible. But I prefer to be outside in the grass, in the fresh air, and I just give myself 5 minutes to really tap into just it's more of like that's how I clear myself of any external, to then be able to, as I said, like I do my 5 to 8 minute meditation here in my office, but I'll do that first. Fresh air, being outside and grounding, and then coming in and taking that meditation time is crucial to every single day.
That's excellent. Excellent. So one last two-part question, which
Yes.
is, what is your dream for yourself and what is your dream for women?
Ooh, okay. Ooh, okay, they just came in. Okay, so my dream for me is to create a legacy and a movement. So they're kind of connected, if that's okay, if I can answer them connected. So my dream for me and my dream for women it's combined. It's to create a legacy where I am creating a movement of women learning how to lean in and trust themselves unapologetically so that they start living life for themselves instead of what other people expect them or expect of them or expect them to do or to be. I want my kids, like really, I want my kids and my grandkids and my great grandkids down the line to look back and see how it is that I made a difference for women, specifically high achieving women who are seeking to create legacies for themselves as entrepreneurs. And to me, like that I'm like, I like, you can take me when I'm meant to go. And as long as I've done that, like I'm good to go. But at the end of the day, it's honestly, it is this movement around teaching women how to trust themselves unapologetically. Stop saying I'm sorry. Do not apologize for who you are, what you think, what you be. How many of us walk around and we're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Or like, I'm sorry, I can't go to this. Why are you sorry? Stop apologizing. It is okay to say, oh, if you did something intentionally, yes, please apologize. But don't apologize. 90% of when you say I'm sorry, you don't need to say that you are sorry. So if I can teach women that, it's like winning, #winning.
Thanks for listening to the Passionistas Project. Since we're not only business partners, but best friends and real-life sisters, we know how unique and truly special our situation is. We know so many solopreneurs, activists, women seeking their purpose, and more who are out there doing it all on their own. They often tell us they wish they had what we have. So we've created a space for them and you to join our sisterhood, where trust, acceptance, and support are the cornerstones of our community. By joining, you become part of our family. We'll give you all of our sis tips on building meaningful relationships through the power of sisterhood and all the tools you need to thrive in 3 key areas: business growth, personal development, and social impact. You'll learn from our panel of Power Passionistas who are experts on topics like transformational leadership, letting go of perfectionism, the power of community, and so much more. You can connect with like-minded women and gender non-conforming, non-binary people who share your values and goals in chat spaces, at online Passionistas pajama parties, and virtual and in-person meetups. And you can register for our exclusive series of online courses designed to help you tap into your intuition, find your purpose, bring your mission to fruition, and integrate diversity, equity, inclusion in every aspect of your plan. Be sure to visit thepassionistasproject.com to sign up for our free membership to join our worldwide sisterhood of passion-driven women who come to get support, find their purpose, and feel empowered to transform their lives and change the world. We'll be back next week with another Passionista who's defining success on her own terms and breaking down the barriers for herself and women everywhere. Until then, stay passionate.